The world spun, a kaleidoscope of neon lights and whiskey haze. As I blinked awake, my head pounding like a drum, my body felt heavy, tangled in sheets that weren't mine. And the warmth beside me wasn't just the morning sun creeping through the window. I turned my head, and there he was, Elliot, my best friend since we were kids, lying naked next to me, his chest rising and falling like he belonged there. New York City hummed outside, the distant wail of sirens blending with the soft creak of the old Brooklyn apartment. My heart jackhammered, not from panic, but from something else, something that made my skin hum where it brushed against his. I should have bolted. I should have laughed it off, blamed the tequila, and sworn it was a mistake. But as Elliot's dark lashes fluttered and his hazel eyes met mine, sleepy and unguarded, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay, to let the world stop spinning and keep us right there, suspended in that impossible moment. We'd been inseparable since we were 10, growing up in the same cramped Queens neighborhood, sneaking beers behind the bodega, and dreaming of escaping to the city's glittering skyline. Elliot was the artist, always sketching in notebooks, his hands stained with charcoal, while I was the pragmatist, chasing a finance degree and a corner office. "You're going to sell your soul to Wall Street," he'd tease, grinning, and I'd shove him, laughing, because he was probably right. But last night, at some dive bar in Williamsburg, something shifted. We'd been celebrating my new job, shots piling up, his hand lingering on my shoulder a second too long. Then, somehow, we'd ended up here, his place, our clothes scattered like confetti, and my entire understanding of myself unraveling. "Morning," Elliot mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just watched me like he was waiting for me to freak out. I opened my mouth to say anything, but nothing came. "My name's Lucas. By the way, Lucas Chun, 25, straight as an arrow." Or so I thought until I was staring at my best friend's bare shoulder, wondering what it'd feel like to trace the freckles there with my fingertips. "You okay?" he asked, propping himself on one elbow. His hair, a mess of dark curls, caught the light, and I noticed the faint scar above his eyebrow from when we'd crashed our bikes at 13. I wanted to touch it, to anchor myself to something familiar, but my hand stayed frozen. "Yeah," I lied, my voice barely a whisper. "You." He shrugged, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "I've had worse wake-ups." I laughed, sharp and nervous, and the tension cracked just enough to breathe. We didn't talk about it, not yet. Instead, we stumbled through the morning, him brewing coffee while I tugged on my jeans, pretending everything was normal. But it wasn't. Every glance, every brush of his arm against mine as we moved around his tiny kitchen, felt like a spark. I caught myself watching the way his fingers wrapped around his mug, the way his lips curved when he talked about his latest art project. What the hell was happening to me? By noon, we were sprawled on his couch, takeout containers littering the coffee table, and I still hadn't left. I could have. I had a million excuses: a meeting, a gym session, anything, but I stayed, letting the hours slip away. Elliot didn't push, didn't ask why I was still there, but his eyes kept finding mine, searching, like he was trying to read a language neither of us spoke. That night, we went out again, this time to a quieter bar, one with fairy lights strung across the ceiling and a jukebox playing old Springsteen. We talked about everything but the night before work, his upcoming gallery show, the Mets' latest loss. But the air between us was charged, every word laced with something unspoken. When he leaned closer to point out a crack in the bar's wooden counter, his knee pressed against mine, and I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. "Lucas," he said softly, his voice cutting through the bar's hum. "You don't have to figure it all out right now." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Figure what out?" He raised an eyebrow, that familiar smirk playing on his lips. You know what? I did. And it terrified me. I'd spent my life checking boxes, good grades, good job, good girlfriend until I'd broken up with Mia 6 months ago, claiming I needed space. Maybe I'd been running from this. From the way Elliot's laugh made my chest ache. From the way I'd always noticed him a little too much. But I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Not yet. The next week was a blur of avoidance and obsession. I threw myself into work, crunching numbers at my new finance gig. But my mind kept drifting to Elliot's hands, his voice, the way he'd looked at me that morning. I avoided his texts, claiming I was swamped. But every night, I'd scroll through our old messages, my thumb hovering over his name. On Friday, he showed up at my office unannounced, leaning against the lobby wall like he owned the place, his leather jacket slung over one shoulder. You're dodging me, he said. No preamble. No bullshit. I'm not. I lied, shoving my hands in my pockets. Just busy. Bullshit. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You're freaking out. And I get it. But don't ghost me. Lucas. Not after. He stopped, jaw tight. And I knew what he meant. Not after we'd crossed a line neither of us could uncross. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted, my voice low, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I'm not gay, he finished, his tone gentle but firm. You don't have to label it. Just don't run. I wanted to argue, to tell him I was straight, that this was a fluke, a drunken mistake. But standing there, with his eyes locked on mine, I couldn't lie. Not to him. I'm scared, I said finally, the truth raw and heavy. He nodded, like he'd expected it. Me too. That night, we didn't go to a bar. We walked the city instead, weaving through crowded sidewalks, the Manhattan skyline glittering against the dark. He told me about the first time he'd realized he liked guys. Back in high school. How he'd kept it quiet because he didn't want to lose me. I told him about Mia. How I'd loved her but never felt whole. Like something was always missing. We didn't hold hands or kiss. But we walked close enough that our shoulders brushed. And it felt like enough. By the time we reached the Brooklyn Bridge, the city sprawling beneath us, I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't named until now. Elliot stopped, leaning against the railing, his breath visible in the cool night air. You ever think about what you really want? He asked, his voice quiet but piercing. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, I let myself see him not just my best friend, but the man who'd been there through every high and low, who made me laugh harder than anyone, who made me feel alive in a way I couldn't explain. Yeah, I said, my voice steady. I'm starting to. The next month was a tightrope walk. We didn't talk about us, but we spent every spare moment together cooking dinner in his cramped kitchen, binge-watching bad sci-fi movies, stealing glances that lingered too long. I started noticing things I hadn't before, the way his laugh lines deepened when he was happy, the way he'd hum off-key while sketching. I was falling. Hard. And it scared the shit out of me. But the world doesn't stop for revelations. My family, traditional and proud, started asking why I wasn't dating, why I was spending so much time with Elliot. My sister, Jenna, cornered me at a family dinner, her eyes sharp. You're different, she said, not accusing, just curious. What's going on with you? Nothing, I said too quickly, my palms sweating. She didn't push, but her look told me she wasn't buying it. I wasn't ready to tell her, to tell anyone, not when I was still figuring it out myself. Elliot's world wasn't any easier. His gallery show was coming up, and he was a wreck, second-guessing every piece. I went to his studio one night, finding him surrounded by half-finished canvases, his hands smudged with paint. "I'm bombing this," he muttered, tossing a brush onto the table. "You're not," I said, stepping closer. "Your work's incredible. Always has been." He looked up, his eyes tired but warm. "You're biased." "Maybe." I grinned, and for a moment, the tension melted. I reached out, wiping a streak of paint off his cheek, and his breath hitched. We stood there, inches apart, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. Then he kissed me, soft and tentative, like he was giving me an out. I didn't take it. I kissed him back, my hands finding his waist. And for the first time, I didn't care what it meant or what came next. I just wanted him. The gallery show was a turning point. Elliot's paintings vibrant. Chaotic swirls of color drew a crowd, and I watched him work the room, charming and nervous all at once. I stayed in the background, sipping wine, my chest tight with pride and something deeper. A woman, sharp-eyed and impeccably dressed, approached me, introducing herself as a gallery owner. "You're Lucas, right?" she said, her smile knowing. "Elliot talks about you nonstop." I froze, my face heating. "We're friends," I managed, but the word felt wrong, too small for what we were becoming. She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Sure. Friends." She handed me her card, saying Elliot's work had potential, that she wanted to talk more. I tucked the card in my pocket, my mind spinning. This was his dream, his shot, and I wanted to be there for him. But dreams come with complications. The gallery owner wanted Elliot to move to L.A. for a residency, a chance to break into the art world for real. He told me about it late one night, his voice quiet as we lay in his bed, the city's glow filtering through the window. "It's 6 months," he said, his fingers tracing circles on my arm. "Maybe a year." My stomach dropped. "You're going?" "I don't know." He turned to face me, his eyes searching. "I don't want to leave you." "Then don't," I said, too fast, too desperate. I hated how needy I sounded, but the thought of him gone, of losing this whatever this was, felt like a punch to the gut. "It's not that simple," he said, his voice breaking. "This could be my chance. Lucas. But you're my home." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to beg him to stay, to tell him I was falling in love with him, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I pulled him close, kissing him like it could keep him here, like it could stop time. The next weeks were a storm of emotions. Elliot wrestled with the decision, torn between his art and us. I wrestled with myself, with the labels I'd clung to, with the fear of what loving him meant in a world that wasn't always kind. I came out to Jenna first, blurting it out over coffee, expecting shock or judgment. Instead, she hugged me, tears in her eyes. "I just want you to be happy," she said, and I broke, the weight of hiding lifting just a little. But Elliot's decision loomed. The night before he was supposed to give his answer, we fought our first real fight. "You're pushing me away," he said, his voice raw, standing in his studio surrounded by his paintings. "You're still scared, aren't you?" "I'm not," I snapped. But it was a lie. I was terrified of losing him, of what it meant to love him openly, of the world's judgment. I don't know how to do this." "Then figure it out," he said, his eyes blazing. "Because I can't keep pretending this is nothing." He was right. I'd been holding back, keeping one foot out the door, too afraid to commit to what I felt. I left his studio that night, the city blurring through my tears as I walked home. I didn't sleep, replaying every moment, every kiss, every laugh. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I showed up at his apartment at dawn, my heart in my throat. He opened the door, looking exhausted. His eyes red like he hadn't slept either. "I'm not running anymore," I said, my voice shaking. "I love you, Elliot. I don't care what it makes me or what anyone thinks. I need you." He stared at me, his expression softening. And then he was kissing me, fierce and desperate, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "I'm not going to L.A.," he said against my lips. "I'm staying." "No," I said, pulling back, my hands on his face. "You're going. It's your dream. And I'll be here when you get back. Or I'll come with you. Whatever it takes." He laughed, a shaky, relieved sound, and we held each other as the city woke up around us. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still conversations to have, fears to face, families to tell. But it was ours, messy and real, built on years of friendship and a love I hadn't seen coming. 6 months later, I flew to L.A. to visit him, my suitcase packed with nerves and hope. He met me at the airport, his smile brighter than the California sun. And when he kissed me in the middle of the terminal, I didn't care who saw. I'd spent my life chasing what I thought I should want. But standing there with Elliot, I realized I'd found what I needed. Sometimes, the truth you've been running from is the one that sets you free.